The struggle for voter registration continued in Dallas County, Selma, Alabama. For 3 years, organizers for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee had worked with Selma residents in demanding the right to vote. Here, as elsewhere, they met solid resistance. By the beginning of 1965, Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference joined the Selma voting rights effort. All the forces of the civil rights movement would soon converge on this small Alabama town.
Today marks the beginning of a determined, organized, mobilized campaign.
The Dallas County Courthouse steps became a dramatic stage as prospective voters lined up for the registrar's office inside. The key actor was Sheriff Jim Clark.
You resident of Dallas County, you move back off the sidewalk there. Get on back there. Get on back. Get on back. Move on. Move on. Move on. You get back on the sidewalk. Off the sidewalk. And move back there. You are blocking the traffic and you interfere in the line. Move back. No traffic and no line.
Movement leaders counted on Clark to draw media attention, the kind of attention that would influence Washington and win voting rights legislation.
I am a segregationist. I do not believe in biracial committees.
Selma's political leaders understood the movement's tactics and were determined not to get caught in the middle. Mayor Joseph Smitherman and Public Safety Director Wilson Baker hoped to restrain the volatile Sheriff Clark as he dealt with the demonstrators.
They picked Selma just like a movie producer would pick a set. You had the right ingredients. I mean, you'd had to seen Clark in his day. He had a helmet liner like General Patton. He had the clothes, the Eisenhower jacket, and a swagger stick. And then Baker was very impressive. And I guess I was the least of all. I was 145 pounds and a crew cut and big ears.
Our city and our county has been subjected to the greatest pressures I think any community in the country has had to withstand. We've had in our area here outside agitation groups of all levels. We've had Martin Luther King. We have had people of the Nazi Party, the States' Rights Party. Both of these groups have come in. They have continually harassed and agitated us for approximately 3 or 4 weeks.
President Johnson knew the problem. And now, having soundly defeated conservative Barry Goldwater in the recent election, he set this goal.
I propose that we eliminate every remaining obstacle to the right and the opportunity to vote.
But Johnson's staff had doubts about pushing for more legislation.
I think those of us who had been involved day in and day out in civil rights litigation, in getting the 1964 Civil Rights Act through Congress, were the people who were dragging our feet and wanted breathing room. The president didn't want that. He said, get it and get it now, because we'll never have a better opportunity to get legislation on any subject, including civil rights, than we have right now in 1965. We have the majority to do it, and we can do it.
My name is James Foreman. I'm the Executive Secretary of Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
In Selma, tension was building between the ministers of SCLC and the young organizers of SNCC.
Basically, it's the question of the people here in Selma feel.
We felt that there should be a projection and an organization of indigenous leadership, leadership from the community. Whereas the Southern Christian Leadership Conference took the position that Martin was a charismatic leader who was mainly responsible for raising money, and they raised most of the money off of his leadership. But this differences in leadership then led to differences in style of work. We wanted a movement that would survive the loss of our lives. Therefore, the necessity to build a broad-based movement and not just a charismatic leader.
Next question.
There was private disagreement, but public unity.
Well, there's no disagreement between SNCC and SCLC, and that's not an issue here.
Tension increased when SNCC invited Malcolm X to speak in Selma. Malcolm X was often critical of civil rights leaders, but surprised many by supporting Dr. King.
And I think that the people in this part of the world would do well to listen to Dr. Martin Luther King and give him what he's asking for and give it to him fast before some other factions come along and try to do it another way. What he's asking for is right. That's the ballot. And if he can't get it the way he's trying to get it, then it's going to be got one way or the other.
And we want you to know, gentlemen, that every one of you.
For weeks, Sheriff Clark controlled his temper. Then, in mid-February, C.T. Vivian confronted Clark and his deputies on the Dallas County Courthouse steps.
But believe me, there were those that followed Hitler, like you blindly follow this Sheriff Clark, who didn't think their day would come.
And he started shouting at me that I was a Hitler, I was a brute, that I was a Nazi. I don't remember everything he called me. And I did lose my temper then.
And we have come to be here because they are registering at this time.
Turn that light out.
And we have come me, and I can't enforce the law with the light in my face. We have come to register. And this is our reason for being here. We're not blinding me with that light. We're not move back. You can arrest us. Let me go. Don't keep that man out. You want to arrest us? You don't have to beat us. No, you don't have to beat us.
With Jim Clark, it was a clear engagement between the forces of movement and the forces of the structure that would destroy movement. It was a clear engagement between those who wished the fullness of their personalities to be met and those that would destroy us physically and psychologically. You do not walk away from that. This is what movement meant. Movement meant that finally we were encountering on a mass scale the evil that had been destroying us on a mass scale. You do not walk away from that. You continue to answer it.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything that Jim Clark does in this community. It's time for us to say to these men that if you don't do something about it, we will have no alternative but to engage in broader and more drastic forms of civil disobedience in order to bring the attention of the nation to this whole issue in Selma, Alabama.
The campaign in Selma escalated when violence occurred during a march in a neighboring town.
The whole town was surrounded that night by auxiliary police, state troopers, sheriffs, and everybody who wanted to come in, really, who felt like beating folk up. We went around the side of the church in an effort to get back into the church. Some of us tried to go back in the front door, and some of us just went where we could, because as we moved, they also moved. They was whipping us as we went.
That night, a young man named Jimmy Lee Jackson attempted to protect his mother from a similar attack. He was shot at close range by an Alabama state trooper.
We've been abused and revenge far, but we'll never turn back.
I just thought during that period it was just too much, too many funerals. And some of us would say, how many more?
We was infuriated to the point that we wanted to carry Jimmy's body to George Wallace and dump it on the steps of the Capitol. We had got about like the white folk are. We had decided that we was gonna get killed or we was gonna be free. I'm gonna be frank about it, and all of us just about felt that way.
As a response to Jimmy Lee Jackson's death, SCLC proposed a symbolic march that would begin in Selma and travel 54 miles to the Capitol in Montgomery. Governor Wallace was determined that the march would not take place.
Such action would not be allowed on the part of any other group of citizens or non-citizens of the state of Alabama, and will not be allowed in this instance. The government must proceed in an orderly manner, and lawful and law-abiding citizens must transact their business with the government in such a manner. There will be no march between Selma, Alabama, and Montgomery, and I have so instructed the Department of Public Safety.
Despite the governor's ban, 600 people gathered at Brown Chapel AME Church on Sunday, March 7th to begin the march to Montgomery. Dr. King was preaching in Atlanta. Hosea Williams and John Lewis led the march. Lewis and other SNCC members chose to participate even though their organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, opposed SCLC's strategy. Surprisingly, as they walked through the center of town, there were no police in sight. The route out of Selma crossed over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Waiting on the other side were Alabama state troopers, under orders from Governor Wallace to stop the marchers. Sheriff Clark's posse was on the sidelines.
It'll be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly. You have to disperse. You are ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church. This march will not continue. Is that clear to you? I've got nothing further to say to you.
Sunday night, the television networks broke into regular programming to show these scenes to a national audience. ABC interrupted its primetime movie, Judgment at Nuremberg, a film about Nazi war crimes. News of the attack provoked a national outcry. In many cities, demonstrators protested the violence in Selma.
There's only one man in this country that can stop George Wallace and those posses. We can present thousands and thousands of bodies in the streets if we want to. And we can have all of the soul force and the moral commitment around this world. But a lot of these problems will not be solved until that shaggably over place called the White House begins to shake and gets on the phone and says, now listen, George, we coming down there and throw you in jail if you don't stop that mess. That's the only way it's going to be stopped. You know, I said it today and I will say it again. If we can't sit at the table, let's knock the fucking legs off. Excuse me.
President Johnson, sensing the mood of the country, addressed Congress on national television.
What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American...
8 days after the beating at the Pettus Bridge, President Johnson asked for a comprehensive voting rights bill and astonished the nation by using the words of the movement.
Their cause must be our cause too. Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
We were all sitting around together, and Martin was sitting in a chair looking toward the TV set. And when LBJ said, "And we shall overcome," we all cheered, and I looked over toward Martin, and Martin was very quietly sitting in the chair, and a tear ran down his cheek. It was a victory like none other. It was an affirmation of the movement.
Sunday, March 21st, 62 days after the Selma campaign began, 3,200 people gathered at Brown Chapel Church for the journey to Montgomery. To protect the marchers, President Lyndon Johnson federalized the Alabama National Guard.
We are going to walk non-violently and peacefully to let the nation and the world know that we are tired now. Yes, sir. We've lived with slavery and segregation 345 years. We waited a long time for freedom. Yes, sir. We are trying to remind the nation of the urgency of the moment. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to transform Alabama, the heart of Dixie, to a state with a heart for brotherhood and peace and goodwill. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. Let's move the line a little faster.
We're marching on to freedom land. We're marching on to freedom land. 'Cause our strength from day to day, as we walk the narrow way, we're going forward, we're going forward. One day we're going to be free. Oh, marching on, come on, to freedom land. Come on, we're marching on to freedom land. 'Cause our strength from day to day, as we walk the narrow way, as we walk the narrow way, we're going forward, we're going forward. One day we're going to be free. One day we're going to be free.
I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and I've answered a call for the Interracial Council there in Kansas City to join the march here. These ideals that have been expressed by all the people have been mine for a long time. I've had an opportunity to do something about it now.
Darling, how you doing? Glad to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Why are you marching?
So we can be free and just, and so other people can be free, and so troopers can't hit no one.
All right. All right.
As they approached Montgomery, it was for many the culmination of a 10-year struggle that began in this city with a bus boycott.
I kept thinking about 10 years earlier how we were visibly just blacks. And when you looked at that march, you had Catholic priests and nuns, and you had other clergy, and you had a lot of white people. It was really a beautiful thing to pass Dexter Avenue and go toward the Capitol.
From day to day, as we travel the narrow way.
To
mean? It was never a march like this one before. There haven't been one since. It was a sense of community moving there. And as you walk, you saw people coming, waving, bringing you food or bringing you something to drink. You saw the power of the most powerful country on the face of the earth.
We must come to see that the end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. And that will be a day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day of man as man. However difficult the moment, yes, sir. However frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed earth will rise again. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. Yes, sir. Because no lie can live forever. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. Not long. Because mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Yes, sir. He's trampling out the village where the grapes of wrath are stored. Yes, sir. Yeah. He's loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. Yes, his truth is marching on. Yes, sir. Glory, hallelujah. Yes, sir. Glory, hallelujah. Yes,